Imagine stepping back in time, not just, reading about a city, but actually being in a thriving, vibrant hub of life. It's buzzing with commerce, art, the whole rhythm of daily existence.
Yeah, a living place.
Exactly. Now, picture that entire world, all those stories, all that human activity, just suddenly wiped off the map. Not by slow disease, not by war, but by this massive mountain that the people living there just saw as, well, a large mountain.
It's part of the scenery.
The tragedy of Pompeii. It's etched into our memory, right? Frozen in time. But for all its fame, the real puzzle, the deep human mystery we're diving into today, isn't just what happened, it's why. Why were so many people left stranded, unable to escape the raw power of Mount Vesuvius? Okay, let's really unpack this. Our mission today is a deep dive into these amazing sources you've brought together. We've got everything from eyewitness accounts, like Pliny the Younger's letters, which are incredible,
Absolute foundation.
all the way to detailed archaeological finds, and even modern scientific analysis. We want to go beyond just the famous ash casts. We're trying to understand the confluence of factors, the perfect storm, really, that led to such a catastrophic loss of life.
Right.
This isn't just, retelling a disaster story. It's digging into human behavior, ancient ways of thinking, how routine can be deceptive, and the brutal reality of facing an overwhelming force of nature. It feels like a timeless lesson, somehow, packed into this one iconic event.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how the whole narrative shifts. It goes from just talking about daily life, which is interesting in itself,
Yeah.
to becoming this profound case study. We're looking at risk perception, cognitive blind spots, and what it really means to hit that point of no return. We'll see how a lack of understanding, just a fundamental gap in knowledge, combined with these really deep-seated routines and almost a comfortable familiarity with smaller threats.
Right, like they got used to it.
Exactly. How that created a truly inescapable trap. It's pretty chilling when you think about how easily we can normalize danger and miss those crucial life-saving warnings.
So let's paint that picture. Life just before that fateful day, August 24th, 79 AD. Pompeii wasn't some quiet little village. This was a prosperous, buzzing Roman city, like a microcosm of Roman life and energy.
Absolutely, a real hub.
You step onto those cobblestone streets, imagine the smell of baking bread from the pistrina, the sound of hammers from workshops, voices spilling out of taverns, and maybe that distinctive smell of garum, the fish sauce.
Oh, definitely. It would have been everywhere. It was the Roman ketchup, essentially. The city pulsed with life, truly. And its prosperity wasn't just luck. Pompeii had this fantastic location right in a region known for its incredibly fertile soil, thanks to the volcano, ironically.
The irony is thick, yeah.
It wasn't just a pretty view, it fueled their economy. The city was a crossroads for trade and travel, a robust economy. Estimates suggest around 600 shops, inns, workshops. Think about that density. And the port was vital, absolutely crucial for bringing goods in from all over the Mediterranean and shipping out local products, fine wines, olive oil, fish from the bay. It was humming.
And the people there, it was a real mix, right? A diverse population. Estimates put it somewhere between, 11,500 to 20,000 people inside the walls?
That's the range, yes. And probably a similar number in the surrounding countryside, the villas and farms. You'd see a whole cross-section of Roman society just walking down the street.
What always gets me is how connected they were, especially the wealthier folks, to the bigger Roman world. Like with fashion and culture. These weren't isolated people.
No, far from it. The elite, especially, kept right up with the latest trends coming out of Rome itself. We're talking pretty sophisticated beauty routines. Things like foundation creams, maybe white lead or chalk for that pale look.
Oh wow, lead, okay.
Yeah, lipstick from ochre or crushed mollusks for color, soot for eyeliner, perfumed water, even ass's milk baths were a thing for skincare.
Ass's milk.
It was believed to be beneficial, yes, and hairstyles were incredibly elaborate, braids, extensions, and those Celtic blonde wigs were highly prized. It signaled wealth, fashion sense being plugged into Rome. This city was very much part of the Roman zeitgeist.
So you're living this vibrant life, surrounded by all this activity, the latest styles, and looming right there is Vesuvius. But you're totally unaware it's a ticking time bomb. It just hammers home how much our perception shapes our reality, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because, and this is mind-blowing, the sources are clear. The people in Pompeii had no concept, not even a specific word, for volcano.
Right. It just wasn't in their vocabulary conceptually.
They just saw it as a large mountain, maybe beautiful, maybe imposing, but inert, completely oblivious to its potential for, Well, for eruption.
And that gap, that linguistic and conceptual void, is maybe one of the most profound things we learn here. This deep immersion in their familiar world, their routines. It created this powerful cognitive barrier.
Like mental blinders.
Pretty much. The mountain was scenery, a backdrop, not an active threat. So this misidentification made them, well, essentially blind to the subtle geological shifts happening right under them. It's not just a missing word, it's a missing idea, a whole category of danger missing from their worldview.
And their daily lives were so rhythmic, predictable, centered around the sun, totally unlike our 24/7 world. People got up early, often before dawn. One of the first things they did was head to the public fountains for water.
A real community moment, that.
Yeah, everyone out together.
Yeah.
And then the barber shops. These weren't just for a quick shave. They were like social hubs, right? Buzzing with gossip, politics, news.
Exactly. Like the ancient equivalent of a coffee shop in town square rolled into one. Crucial social spots. And their day had this incredible structure based on the Roman hora, the hours. It shifted a bit with the seasons, but the sequence was clear. Hora prima diurna, that's roughly, say, 4:30 to 5:45 a.m. People are waking up, getting water, maybe a simple breakfast, bread, cheese, vegetables, and hitting those barber shops.
Okay, busy start.
Then Hora secunda, maybe 5:45 to 7 a.m. Everyone's at work. Merchants opening stalls, farmers out in the fields, artisans in their workshops, slaves doing their duties. The city's engine is running. By Hora quarta, 8:15 to 9:30 a.m., the streets are packed, markets are bustling, big discussions happening down in the Forum, the civic heart of Pompeii.
Sounds intense. But then it slowed down around midday.
Traditionally, yes. Hora septima, noon to about 1:15 p.m., was for relaxation. A light lunch, the prandium, maybe some meat, fish, fruit, and often followed by a siesta, especially in the heat.
Makes sense.
And if you wanted entertainment, sometimes there'd be gladiator shows in the amphitheater around this time. Always drew a crowd. Then Hora octava, maybe 1:15 to 2:30 p.m., prime time for the formal baths. And these were central, not just for getting clean.
Right, there were social centers too.
Hugely. Places for business deals, political chat, exercise, relaxation, and accessible to pretty much everyone, from the richest citizens down to slaves, though maybe at different times or in different sections. After the bath came the main meal, the cena, around Hora decima, say 3:45 to 5:2 p.m.
And evenings were quiet.
Generally, yeah. Unlike our brightly lit cities, Pompeii's streets were dark, often unsafe, so limited evening entertainment for most. People tended to head to bed early, following the sun cycle again.
It's such a stark contrast to now. No constant news feeds, no instant messaging, no screens demanding attention. This simplicity, this reliance on natural cycles, it must have created such a strong sense of normalcy, predictability.
It really did. And that deep sense of stability, ironically, made them less likely to notice or react to subtle environmental changes. Their world felt constant, utterly predictable because it was day in, day out. Their focus was immediate, local, and connecting that back, this deep immersion in the here and now, this adherence to routine, it built that cognitive barrier we talked about. The mountain was just there, part of the predictable landscape, not an active threat. They were so tuned into nature's predictable rhythms.
That they were blind to its unpredictable side.
Exactly. Blind to its potential for catastrophic wrath. This daily schedule isn't just quaint history. It reveals a mindset, a way of being in the world that had profound consequences.
And their food reflected the region too, right? Simple but flavorful?
Yes, lots of boiling, smoking, frying, baking. Seasoned heavily with that garum, the fermented fish sauce, or defrutum, a kind of sweet reduced wine syrup, using the local bounty.
But life wasn't all work and simple meals. Entertainment was big. The amphitheater, you mentioned gladiators. Apparently it's the oldest Roman amphitheater known.
That's right, a very early example. And yes, it hosted some pretty brutal spectacles. Ultra-violent gladiator contests, men fighting wild animals, drew huge roaring crowds. A very visceral part of Roman culture.
But there were other options too, for the less bloodthirsty.
Oh yeah. The ancient theater, which had been updated over time, offered comedies, rustic farces poking fun at daily life, elaborate mime shows based on myths. And for music lovers, there was the Odeum, a smaller, dedicated concert hall built for good acoustics. So a surprising variety, really.
What also comes through is this intense focus on Pompeii itself. Local routines, complex social structures, and really fervent local politics. I read that getting a seat on Pompeii's council was considered harder than getting into the Roman Senate.
That's a telling detail, isn't it? It shows the incredible competition, the energy poured into local power and status. Their world truly revolved around Pompeii.
So speaking of that local world, let's dig into the social fabric. Like most Roman towns, it was pretty rigidly structured. Slaves at the bottom, then freedmen, former slaves, and then the freeborn citizens.
A clear hierarchy, yes. And it shaped everything. At the very top, you had the senatorial elite. Super wealthy, often owned big villas nearby, maybe visited for holidays, oversaw their estates. Huge influence, maybe not day to day in Pompeii, but their presence mattered. Below them, and much more involved locally, were the local elite.
These were the town leaders.
Pretty much. Wealthy landowners, big merchants, they held the magistracies, funded public buildings, ran the show locally. Their decisions really shaped the city.
Then the freedmen. People who'd bought or been granted their freedom. This seems like a really dynamic group.
It was. Incredible potential for upward mobility. Some ended up doing less desirable jobs, sure, but many became really successful business owners. You see it in the houses they built, the shops they ran. It shows that Roman society, for all its rigidity, had pathways for advancement, even from slavery. And then, the foundation, the economic backbone, were the slaves. A huge part of the population, maybe 40%, doing most of the hard labor, farming, building, domestic work. Essential, but often living brutal lives.
And tying it all together was that patron-client system.
Absolutely fundamental. Powerful patrons supported their clients with business help, political backing in return for loyalty, service, and, crucially, votes. In a crisis like the eruption, who your patron was and what they decided to do could literally determine your fate. That dependency definitely played a role in people staying put.
What about women? Where do they fit in this? Any power or influence?
They weren't a separate class like the others, but their status varied hugely based on wealth and family, generally between slaves and freedmen. But, significantly, Roman women in Pompeii could inherit and own property.
Okay, that's important.
Very. It meant wealthy women could wield real economic clout and gain social prominence. The sources mention Julia Felix, for instance, a wealthy businesswoman who owned and rented out properties, including shops and even private baths. So no formal political office, but definitely agency, especially in the city's economic and social life.
So you're navigating this complex city. Your social rank dictates your day, who you talk to, your opportunities, all while the ground under your feet is giving these little shudders. It's a society deeply rooted in its ways, its hierarchies, which, as we'll see, played its own part in the tragedy. Which brings us right to those whispers, the warnings that were tragically missed. Vesuvius wasn't just sitting quiet. It had been seismically active for years before 79 AD. This wasn't out of the blue. The mountain had been rumbling for a long time.
This really poses that crucial question, doesn't it? How do communities learn to live with constant low-level threats? And what happens when those threats suddenly ramp up beyond anything familiar, especially when you lack the framework to understand them? Pompeii gives us a very stark answer. There was that huge earthquake, February 5th, 62 AD, just 17 years before the big eruption. Estimates vary, but it was powerful, maybe magnitude 5, maybe even up to 7.5. Serious stuff.
Caused a lot of damage.
Widespread devastation. Pompeii largely flattened, Herculaneum badly damaged, even Naples felt it. Aftershocks went on for days. And here's the key thing. Archaeological evidence shows they were still repairing the damage from that earthquake in 79 AD.
17 years later. Wow.
Yeah, scaffolding might still have been up, temples being rebuilt. It shows this long period of instability had just become part of life. And then in the 4 days right before the 79 AD eruption, there were reports of more minor tremors.
So the signs were there. Big ones years before, smaller ones right before.
Yeah.
But they just normalized it, got used to the shaking.
It really seems that way. Habituation. That incredible human ability to adapt sometimes becomes a terrible vulnerability. Pliny the Younger, our eyewitness, even wrote that these tremors were not particularly alarming because they are frequent in Campania. Chilling, isn't it? It shows how commonplace it felt.
Yeah.
So when a threat becomes routine, its perceived danger just drops. Like living near train tracks, eventually you don't even hear the trains. For Pompeians, the earth shaking was just background noise.
It's that frog in boiling water thing, right?
Yeah.
The temperature creeps up slowly, you adapt, and you don't realize the lethal danger until it's way too late. Makes you wonder what we might be normalizing today.
It does, and this adaptation was made worse by that fundamental cognitive gap. No concept of volcanism, no understanding that an erupting mountain was even possible. So tremors were just tremors, part of living near a large mountain.
They had no mental box to put it in.
Exactly. No framework to interpret these signals as warnings of that kind of catastrophe. So even when the tremors got more frequent or slightly stronger right before the eruption, that critical escalation was missed, dismissed as just more of the usual. Their frame of reference simply couldn't contain the reality of what was coming.
And that brings us back to the most staggering gap.
Yeah.
No word for volcano. How fundamentally does that shape your ability to react?
It's profound. What's fascinating and devastating is seeing how a missing word, a missing concept, crippled their risk perception. Before 79 AD, nobody in Italy thought of Vesuvius as a dangerous volcano. Classical Latin just didn't have a specific word for it.
So what would they have said?
They'd use words like mons for mountain, ignis for fire if they saw something burning up there, maybe talk about tremors. But nothing conveyed the idea of an active, explosive mountain. It was just a big, inert landform in their minds.
So if the very idea isn't even in your language, how could you possibly see earthquakes as a warning sign for that kind of event? It's a complete disconnect.
Precisely. That linguistic and conceptual void meant they lacked the mental model. Earthquakes, no matter how frequent or strong, couldn't be interpreted as precursors to a volcanic eruption. They were just tremors. Annoying sometimes, damaging sometimes, but fundamentally familiar.
Oh.
This cognitive deficit, combined with getting used to the shaking, meant the idea of escaping a volcanic eruption wasn't even on the table until it was far, far too late. It directly explains why so many were trapped. They didn't understand the nature of the threat. They didn't know what they needed to escape from. It really shows how language shapes our reality, our ability to grasp the unprecedented. Their minds literally had no place for what Vesuvius was about to do.
And then, for those who remained unaware, the sky literally fell. August 24th, 79 AD, Vesuvius begins its eruption. The first phase, the Plinian phase, named after Pliny the Younger, of course.
Our main source, yeah.
It started around 9:00 a.m., relatively small explosion, thin ash cloud, almost quiet like a deceptive whisper before the roar.
But that didn't last. It escalated terrifyingly fast. By 1:00 p.m., just 4 hours later, it was monstrous. Vesuvius blasted this colossal cloud smoke, ash, pulverized rock, an incredible 19 to 20 kilometers, that's 12 to 20 miles, straight up.
Miles high.
Miles high. Into the stratosphere, a towering column, a visible sign of immense energy being released.
And this is where Pliny the Younger gives us that unforgettable image. He described the cloud as looking like an umbrella pine.
That distinctive shape.
Can you imagine seeing that?
Oh.
A cloud shaped like a giant, terrifying tree, miles tall, boiling upwards. You'd know something awful was happening, but you'd have no idea how awful. It's an image burned into history.
And after that blast, the destruction started raining down. For hours, this continuous fallout of ash, lapillis, those little volcanic pebbles, and white pumice, some pieces up to an inch across, just fell relentlessly.
Not like snow, more like a barrage.
Exactly. And it was hot. Intense enough to heat roof tiles to 120 to 140 degrees Celsius. That's 250 to 280 Fahrenheit. Imagine trying to walk on that, let alone being under it.
And this period, these few hours of ashfall, the sources say this was the critical last opportunity to escape.
That was the window, diminishing fast, but still there. The initial ashfall, however bad, wasn't instantly lethal like what came later. People could still move, could still try to get out. Many must have hesitated, though, hoping it would stop, maybe fearing the chaos outside more than the danger inside.
A fatal hesitation for many.
Tragically, yes, and it only got worse. A second eruptive column started, dumping heavier gray pumice with bigger chunks up to 4 inches across for another 18 hours.
18 hours of that.
18 more hours. So as the day wore on, the sheer weight of all this material piling up became overwhelming. Tons and tons of it. Roofs started to groan, then collapse. Buildings failed. This really kicked in around 5:30 p.m. For anyone sheltering inside, believing they were safe, this was often the moment the trap snapped shut.
And then the darkness. Total darkness. Pliny described it as a deeper darkness prevailed than in the thickest night.
Not just nightfall. This was an unnatural, absolute blackness from the ash cloud, completely blocking the sun. Utterly disorienting, terrifying. People reported seeing strange lights on the mountain through this dark, misinterpreting them as fires, maybe signs of hope, prompting some final, desperate, often futile attempts to flee. And connecting this back, the really insidious thing about this phase was how gradual yet relentless it was. It wasn't one instant boom. It was this slow, suffocating progression.
Squeezing the hope out.
And squeezing the options out one by one. From dismissible tremors to heavy ashfall to collapsing buildings to impenetrable darkness, it just systematically removed escape routes. Many people instinctively would have sheltered indoors, thinking it was just a really, really bad ash storm, not not an existential threat about to wipe them out. That misjudgment, combined with the sheer scale, turned a potentially survivable phase into an inescapable trap.
It helps to trace the timeline, hour by hour, to really feel how this unfolded. It wasn't sudden, it was a prolonged tightening grip.
It really was. So remember, it started years before with those earthquakes, especially the big one in 62 AD. Damage, habituation, ongoing repairs right up to 79 AD. Then, 4 days before, those minor tremors warnings ignored because tremors were normal.
Okay. Then August 24th hits. 9:00 a.m., first eruption phase, small explosion, thin ash cloud. Seems minor.
Deceptively minor. But by 1:00 p.m., boom, violent eruption. That massive umbrella pine cloud, 20 miles high. Ash, lapilli, pumice start raining down on Pompeii.
And from 1:40 p.m. onwards, for hours, that's the Plinian phase hitting Pompeii hard. Ash, pumice falling, roof tiles getting scorching hot, 120, 140 C. This is that last chance to escape.
Right. And at the same time, that second column starts depositing gray pumice, continuing for 18 hours, layer upon layer.
By 5:30 p.m. on the 24th, and for the next 7.5 hours, the weight is too much. Buildings start collapsing, and nodal darkness falls. By midnight, August 25th, that cloud reaches its peak height 20 miles up. Apocalyptic.
And then 1:00 a.m., August 25th, everything changes.
Yeah.
The second, deadlier eruption stage begins. The massive cloud collapses under its own weight, triggering the pyroclastic surges.
These are the killer flows.
These are the killer flows. PDCs 1 and 2 hit Herculaneum first upwind, closer, devastating for them. For Pompeii, there's actually a slight decrease in pumice fall for about 4.5 hours from 2:00 a.m. A brief, maybe deceptive lull.
But the worst is yet to come for Pompeii.
Exactly. 6:30 a.m., August 25th. Surge 3 reaches Pompeii. The first direct pyroclastic flow hits the city, kills many civilians instantly, and it doesn't stop.
Oh, man.
7:30 a.m. for the next 15 minutes. Surges 4 and 5 sweep over Pompeii and nearby towns, relentless one after another, no escape.
And the final blow.
8:00 a.m., Surge 6 hits, dumps another 2 feet of dense debris and ash, buries everything that might have somehow survived. By August 26th, it's quiet, Vesuvius is spent. Pompeii and Herculaneum are completely submerged under this vast, silent blanket of volcanic debris, a drawn-out, agonizing end.
So, okay, the ashfall was terrifying. Slow suffocation, maybe a false sense of being able to wait it out, but the pyroclastic flows, these were the inescapable inferno. The real horror show unfolded that second morning, August 25th, when that giant eruption cloud collapsed.
Yeah, it's crucial to grasp what these flows are. They're not just ash. They're fast-moving, incredibly dense waves of hot gas, ash, and rock fragments. Think of a superheated avalanche driven by gravity pouring down the mountainside.
How fast are we talking?
Speeds reaching up to 700 kilometers an hour. That's over 400 miles per hour. Faster than a Formula One car.
No way to outrun that.
Absolutely not. Anything in their path was instantly incinerated or suffocated by the toxic gases and unbelievable heat. A force of nature so fast, so hot, survival was virtually impossible. Herculaneum, being closer in upwind, got hit first by the initial flows. The remains there show signs of almost instantaneous death, vaporization even. These first flows didn't quite reach Pompeii immediately, but their fate was sealed.
Then at 1 a.m. on the 25th, that second stage starts, engulfing the surrounding cities. And like the timeline showed, Pompeii couldn't escape. Surge 3 hits around 6:30 a.m., a searing wall of death. Kills many who'd survived the ashfall.
And it just kept coming, rapidly followed by surges 4, 5, and 6, one after another, rolling over the city, burying it completely, adding another 2 feet of debris on top of everything else. Irrevocable.
And the heat, you mentioned the heat was extreme.
Unimaginable. The first surge might have been 180 to 360 Celsius. That's 360 to 680 Fahrenheit. Bad enough. But later surges got hotter. 220 up to 500 degrees Celsius.
700 C, that's nearly 1,000 Fahrenheit.
Exactly. Hot enough, as gruesome evidence sometimes shows, to make skulls explode from the rapid heating of brain tissue and fluids turning to steam. Anyone left was killed instantly. Overwhelming heat, toxic gas, bodies frozen in their final posture. And these flows weren't just killing people, they demolished buildings, tore structures apart.
So the shift from ashfall to pyroclastic flows, that was the absolute point of no return.
Completely irreversible. Ashfall was horrific, but maybe, just maybe, survivable if you could get out. The flows, no chance. Too fast to outrun, instantly suffocating, instantly incinerating. And what's so striking and horrifying is that scale of power and the sheer speed it overwhelmed everything. It wasn't a slow burn anymore. It was a flash furnace. Instant death. vaporizing soft tissue, leaving bone, or creating those incredible voids that Fiorelli later cast.
Yeah.
This sudden shift extinguished all hope, led to that swift, brutal end for heat or asphyxiation. So the sudden devastation people talk about, it wasn't really at the start of the eruption, it was concentrated in these final, awful hours of the pyroclastic flows. No chance.
And the aftermath. But August 26th, silence. Pompeii completely buried under 4 to 6 meters, that's 13 to 20 feet of ash and pumice. Some places up to 12 meters, nearly 40 feet deep.
Just erased from the landscape, entombed.
Forgotten for centuries. And the human cost. Estimated 2,000 people perished in Pompeii alone. Just a staggering number. Okay, let's unpack this incredible irony. The same catastrophic force that just obliterated Pompeii somehow also created this unbelievable time capsule, a perfect chilling snapshot of one moment.
It's quite extraordinary. The specific way Vesuvius erupted led to this unparalleled preservation. The city wasn't just buried, it was buried under layers and layers of fine volcanic ash and pumice. This created an almost airtight, dry environment.
And the bodies.
Well, as the victims' bodies, and really all organic stuff, were covered by this rapidly accumulating ash, they eventually decayed. But, and this is the crucial part, the ash surrounding them hardened, perfectly retaining their exact shape, leaving these hollow cavities underground.
Like natural molds.
Exactly. Perfect, untouched voids, preserving their final forms with incredible precision. And it wasn't just bodies. Delicate things like wooden furniture, papyrus scrolls, food, even loaves of bread in ovens were preserved, often carbonized but keeping their shape. The ash cooled and hardened quickly, creating these precise molds. A violent, suffocating burial ironically created the perfect conditions for preservation, a paradox of destruction.
And these voids, these ghosts in the earth, were what the archaeologist Giuseppe Fiorelli tapped into later in 1863 with his plaster casting technique. It's an innovation that brings the past and its suffering right into our faces.
Fiorelli's method was brilliant in its simplicity, carefully pouring liquid plaster into those hollow voids left for the decayed bodies. Once the plaster set, they could meticulously chip away the surrounding hardened ash, revealing these incredibly detailed 3D casts of the victims in their final moments, not just skeletons. You see their positions huddled, covering faces, struggling. You see the folds of their clothes, hairstyles, sometimes even expressions of agony or resignation. It's a heartbreaking, unparalleled glimpse into their end. It transforms statistics back into people.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think, doesn't it? How often does destruction lead to innovation like that? Fiorelli didn't just show what happened. He gave us this visceral, empathetic connection to who it happened to. The technique was also great for revealing other fragile things, like textiles or bundles of cloth.
And they found over 1,000 bodies this way, offering these intimate insights into who lived there, their lives, their final moments. It's just such a stark reminder of nature's power, but also the humanity caught up in it.
And these finds sometimes change what we thought we knew. Like the skeletons found in the boathouses at Herculaneum in 1982. That was a huge discovery.
Why was that so significant?
Well, people used to think most people in Herculaneum had escaped by sea. But finding hundreds huddled together in those boathouses, curled up, clearly overcome by the intense heat of the pyroclastic flows almost instantly. It showed they'd sought shelter there, thinking it was safe, and died together. It really hammered home the lethality and speed of that fate.
And the eruption didn't just bury the city, it changed the whole landscape, right?
Yeah.
The coastline moved.
Massively. Pompeii used to be much closer to the sea, maybe a kilometer from the sea gate. Now it's about 700 meters further inland because of all the volcanic material that piled up and extended the land. The fertile Sarno plain nearby, completely buried too, turned into an ash wasteland, at least initially. So connecting back this ashy aftermath, it's not just destruction, it's this unique, violent preservation that gives us incredible detail. And interestingly, for centuries after, the buried city actually became like a quarry.
People dug into it.
Yeah, digging tunnels to get out marble, stone blocks, lead pipes, treating it as a source of building materials. And the hill covering Pompeii, the Civita Hill, was eventually cultivated again, the new volcanic soil proving fertile, and even used as a burial ground later on. Life finds a way, even on top of tragedy.
So after all that horror, Pompeii lay buried. Forgotten, really, for over 1,700 years, just sitting there, swallowed by the earth, its location fading into legend. Now, we often think of it as perfectly sealed, but you're saying there was some activity soon after.
Yeah, the popular image is a pristine time capsule, completely untouched. But evidence suggests there were some early rescue or salvage attempts, probably by survivors or relatives trying to recover valuables shortly after the eruption. And some taller structures, like parts of the Forum, likely remain visible as mounds for a while.
So not totally sealed off.
Not completely, and over the centuries, definitely, thieves dug tunnels caniculi to get at valuable stuff, sometimes destructive, sometimes just taking what was easy to reach. So while largely lost to history, it wasn't entirely undisturbed until its official rediscovery.
And that rediscovery was almost accidental. A construction project.
Pretty much. The first significant unearthing was in the late 16th century, between 1594 and 1600. An architect, Domenico Fontana, was digging a canal to divert the River Sarno. He hit ancient walls with paintings, inscriptions, stone blocks.
Did he realize what he'd found?
Apparently not. He thought it was just ruins of some old villa and moved on. Didn't grasp he was on the edge of a lost city. Proper excavations didn't really start until the 18th century. Herculaneum first in 1738, then Pompeii in 1748. But these early efforts, well, they were often more like treasure hunting.
He's grabbing the good stuff.
Largely, yes. Focused on finding statues, mosaics, frescoes to decorate royal palaces or private collections. Not much systematic recording, no real attention to context or stratigraphy. It was about extracting beautiful objects, not understanding a civilization. Pretty destructive, archaeologically speaking.
Okay, so then comes the big shift. Fiorelli, 1860. This is where modern archaeology basically gets born at Pompeii.
You could absolutely argue that. Giuseppe Fiorelli's appointment as director was transformative, a real visionary. He stopped the random digging immediately. He insisted on rigorous methods, mapping everything in situ, recording context, excavating systematically by region and block, regio and insulae.
Right.
And of course, he introduced the plaster casts.
Right.
This whole methodological revolution turned a treasure hunt into a scientific discipline. He fundamentally changed how we approach the ancient world. Pompeii became the crucible for modern archaeology, and excavations have continued ever since, off and on. Big push after World War II. By the 1990s, about 2/3 of the city was uncovered, and modern work is all about comprehensive preservation, not just grand villas, but humble homes, workshops, everything. Lots of effort goes into restoration now, too, trying to preserve what's exposed.
And what we've gained is just this unparalleled snapshot, right? Frozen at the moment it was buried. We see ancient city planning, public buildings, those amazing houses.
Yeah.
Exactly. The layout, the water systems, the luxurious homes with frescoes and gardens, but also the everyday stuff, tools, pottery, food. Hundreds of homes and businesses uncovered, each telling a story about architecture, social class, daily trade. And it goes beyond buildings and objects. This raises that question again. How can one disaster yield so much? Think about the graffiti on the walls.
Hey, graffiti, what does that tell us?
It's amazing. It gives us invaluable examples of vulgar Latin, the colloquial language people actually spoke, not the formal Latin of writers like Cicero. We hear ordinary voices, jokes, love notes, complaints, political slogans, an incredible linguistic window.
Wow.
And the impact of the discoveries, especially the art, was huge across Europe. It sparked the whole neoclassical movement, a massive revival of interest in antiquity that shaped art, architecture, design, fashion. Pompeii's influence spread far beyond archaeology. Its tragic and inadvertently fueled centuries of creativity and scholarship.
Okay.
Hashtag outro.
So, wrapping up our deep dive, the tragedy of Pompeii, frozen by Vesuvius, it really stands as this powerful testament to nature's force, but also to the complexities of human response. Why were so many stranded? It boils down to that chilling combination, normalizing the familiar danger of tremors,
Getting used to the shaking.
a profound lack of understanding about what a volcano actually was. No word for it, no concept.
A critical cognitive gap.
And then the sudden overwhelming arrival of those deadly pyroclastic flows that just offered no escape.
Yeah, the inhabitants, so used to the quakes, just couldn't interpret the escalating signs correctly. That habituation, combined with the missing concept of an erupting mountain, meant the warnings were essentially unreadable in their worldview. The initial ashfall might have seemed like something you could ride out indoors.
A terrible miscalculation.
A fatal one, because then came the flows, superheated, unstoppable, sealing their fate.
Which is why we think around 2,000 people died in Pompeii alone. And those plaster casts. They're just such a visceral link to those ordinary people, turning numbers back into human tragedy.
Absolutely. And Pompeii remains this potent, timeless warning. It highlights how vital scientific understanding of natural hazards is and why we need effective warning systems. Scientists watch Vesuvius like a hawk today, gas emissions, ground movement, seismicity trying to provide warnings, learning directly from 79 AD, trying to ensure it doesn't happen again without warning.
But beyond the warning, the site itself just keeps giving. These incredible insights into Roman life, culture, even resilience in a strange way, how people adapt and rebuild. It's just this unique window into a world stopped in time. So as we finish thinking about Pompeii today, here's a final thought for you listening. What hidden Vesuviuses might exist in our own modern world? Maybe not mountains, but threats we've normalized, gotten used to, or phenomena we don't fully grasp yet, that could, one day, demand our attention and force us to confront our own sense of safety.